Hello, and welcome to today's episode of the Authentic Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Jill Simons, and I'm so excited to grow in the radical art of standing in what God says about you with you today. The show is a place where we pour into the sense of who God is, who we are, and how we can live more in the freedom that He has for us every single day. Hello, my name is Jill Simons, and I am the host of the Authentic Uprising podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you today. And we have already had to restart the recording. So we know that this is going to be a great episode because anytime there's the technology gremlins out in force, that means that the Holy Spirit has big things to say. So I'm very excited to share this episode with you today. When we were praying before getting on the podcast, I was just really struck by the Lord's provision in providing this specific guest for today because due to my maternity leave, I recorded a whole bunch of episodes far in advance, and we were getting down to the wire of when I wanted to be done recording. We did not have anyone for this spot. This was the last spot in the year left, and we didn't know what we were going to do. And then we were really coming from this place of under our own power, right? My assistant and I are trying to track somebody down, find somebody, thinking it's going to be kind of a filler episode. But then when we really submitted it to the Lord in prayer, the perfect person came to us. And so I just want to give God all of his due glory and praise for that. My guest today is Colleen Pressprich, and she has done many wonderful things. I've interviewed her about her book in the past and is just a wonderful human being. But today we're going to be talking about the her ability. Today, let me let this. Okay. Today, we're going to be talking about the time that she spent caring and being primary caregiver for an elderly member of her family, and really what that has taught her about having her own needs and her own ability to ask for what she needs in her life. So thank you so much for being with me today, Colleen.
It is an absolute pleasure to be here, truly.
So share with me a little bit about how you ended up in the situation of long-term caregiving.
Well, so when I got married, I moved to Michigan, and my mom and my grandmother were both still in Connecticut. My grandmother was living in an assisted living facility, and my mom was just kind of stuck, right? Like not wanting to move away, not really able to travel much. And as I prayed about it, I just kind of started getting the sense from the Lord, like, you should ask grandma to live with you. And it's like, whoo, that's a big move. And so after a couple of weeks of God just sort of like over and over tapping me on the shoulder with it, I mentioned it to my husband. I was like, I think we need to pray about this. And he was like, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it. I was like, whoa, you got to pray about it. Right. I'm like, here I am going like, all right, I'm going to talk to him. He's going to say no, because this is crazy pants. And then we're good. Right, Lord? And of course, my husband's spectacular and was like, no, seriously, we should just do it. You haven't called her yet? Like, what's the deal? And so he was just starting medical school, and we had a 9-month-old daughter. And so we knew I was going to stay home, right? Because my, private school teacher salary was not going to cover the cost of daycare. And so we invited my grandmother, who was 91 at the time, and a firecracker, to come and live with us. And so she accepted our offer. And we drove out, packed up all her stuff, flew her out to her new home in Michigan. And really, she just like let us uproot her away from everything she knew. And so that kind of started our journey with Graham. And she was with us all the way up till this past October when she passed away, just shy of her 99th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That is major props to your husband, because I would have
Yeah.
thought the exact same thing. Like, I get to be done with this as soon as I like present it. And
Yeah.
wow, that is incredible. And so as you walked through this time with her, she continued to have changing needs, right? Share with us about what that looked like throughout the different periods of her being with your family.
Yeah. So when we moved her in, she wasn't driving, but she was still incredibly active. You know, she was walking with a cane, and that's it. And that was like if we like begged her to, like, can you try not to fall? But she was going, to the senior, I would drive her to the senior center, and she got very involved here. So she was doing chair yoga and mahjong and going to the theater and all of these things. But after a couple of years, we started noticing shifts in her physical ability, right? Like we moved from a cane to a walker, and that was hard for her. And then we moved into dementia, where her mind started slowly to just kind of go, and she started to forget different things. If you're familiar with dementia, short-term memory goes first, and it kind of works its way backwards. But as those gaps start to build up, what happens is that the person fills them with what they think the memory should be. So you kind of end up with the same stories told on repetition, but they're not necessarily true, because the person is really trying to, like, they're trying to make up their history with the information that they can still hold on to. So we went through periods where she needed a lot of help. We had a couple of falls and hospitalizations, where she would come home and not be able to really do anything. After our third daughter was born, I think I was like 3 weeks postpartum, and grandma ended up in the hospital. And when she came home, she like couldn't even walk. So here I am, like, my doctor's like, don't lift anything heavier than your baby. Like, oh, well, that's not realistic, is it? So we had a lot of ups and downs, but it was an incredible opportunity, to love her, to see her every single day. Right. This woman who we'd always been close growing up, like, she taught me how to quilt and to sew and to bake, and to have the opportunity to have that time with her, to watch my children have that time with her. Right. Like, and not just, like, she read them more stories than I did. Right. And was always there for a hug and a snuggle. And then as she started needing more help, to just get to watch my kids, come in the morning with me to grandma's room and like pass her dentures and, remind her of the next step of the process, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, because it really should be. Right. Yeah, it was the most incredible experience getting to have her with us for so long, and to have the privilege of taking care of her. She had cared for so many people over the years, right? Like, so to just get to kind of repay that debt a little bit was amazing.
Absolutely. That is such a beautiful gift. And it really fits so well in what we're talking about all of this month, this idea that when we look at these sort of acute situations, right, her reaching the point where she's not able to do for herself really at all. And like our guest earlier this month talked about in her situation, where you have these people who are so life enriching to those around them that have this level of need, and how much we set that up as a stumbling block in our own lives, that really any level of need is not okay for us, especially as mothers. I know that this is something that we're in very similar phases of the process right now. And it can be very, very challenging to feel like we are worth it to anybody if we have any needs. And then before we got on the podcast, before we started recording, you said something so interesting and so beautiful about your grandmother coming to see and experience her own worth through this process, and how then that has been mirrored in your own. So could you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my grandmother, when she first moved in with us, she really just didn't understand why we'd want her. She's like, well, like, why, like, this is work, this is extra work, I'm going to cause problems for you. And so we just kept, saying, like, you're not extra work, we love you. And over the years realized that, she came from a different generation, and one in which she really hadn't had a lot of people say, like, I love you, let me take care of you. So it was very, very hard for her. And when we'd reach these kind of new plateaus of need, right? Because a lot of times you're going along and then it's just sort of a step down. And her immediate reaction would be like, I should just go back to Connecticut. This is just too much. And we like, no, first, of course, we go, like, is that what you really want? And it was never, yes, that's what I really want. It was always, I'm really scared that I'm putting too much on you. And we just would, all surround her with, and get down, eye to eye. She used to sit in this big blue chair in our window, and say, like, Grandma, we love you. We love you. You belong here. You are part of our family. Over and over and over again, until it kind of started to seep in over the years. And it took a while, but she got it. And really in watching her accept love and accept care, and in realizing that, the times that it was the most work were the times when she tried to do something on her own that she really couldn't, because she was trying to avoid putting a burden on us, instead of just saying, I need help. She'd try to do it all herself, and she couldn't. It really shifted my own perspective of not just accepting the fact that sometimes when I try to do it all by myself, it ends up being worse for the people around me, right? Sometimes legitimately logistically, but also sometimes emotionally, right? Like when I'm trying to be the mom who does everything, I'm grouchy and unpleasant, and it's just not good. But it also helped me to realize it is hard to trust that the people in your life love you that much, right? To care for you over and over again, even when they're tired or strained or burnt out. And to be in a position to have to ask for help is really hard. And so today, even now when I have to do that, I think about her and I ask for her help. And, I ask her to remind me, please, help me to be as graceful as you are graceful. Help me to be as humble as you are humble. And and gracious and grateful. And to realize that when we accept help, it's an opportunity to build a relationship that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I think that, and to me, that's just, that almost makes me tear up, the idea that part of what you gave to her is this appreciation for what we're all about, right? Which is to be able to stand radically in the truth of what God says about us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I think there are so many people who get so far in life without that, that
Yeah.
are even at the end of their life. And this has
Mm-hmm.
not been their experience yet. And so I just thank thank the Lord that your grandmother had that opportunity to really learn that in her relationship with your family, because that creates a place for her to be able to step into that in her relationship with God as well. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we all receive. And, I'm sure that that's been a fruit for you as well,
Oh gosh, yes.
to step into that in your own relationship with God, because this fear of asking, so
Mm-hmm.
it really stems from pride, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's pride. It's fear, right? It's fear of, being told no, right? It's fear of asking for help and, having somebody dismiss what you need, because we've all been there, right? Like, we've all asked people for help that we thought we could count on, or, when we needed it, and have, had those wounds. But to have the courage to step out again and again, and to acknowledge our own worth in the asking, it's a tremendous gift, and one that I definitely learned from her. Because I always would tell her, like, don't apologize, we love you. Don't apologize, we love you. And I have to say that to myself, when I have to ask for help, right? Like, don't apologize. They love you. Don't apologize. This is what you need. Um, and that, it can be a hard truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Though this is totally inaccurate to the time when you were actually listening to this podcast, I am currently 8.5 months pregnant at the time of recording this. And this is renewing my mind, right, about what's okay for me to say, like, I need this right now.
Yes.
Because it is very just, I mean, like so many times in life, not exclusive to pregnancy in any way, but this is kind of my iteration of the experience right now. And I know you walking with chronic illness experience
Mhm.
on a regular basis as well, where you have really these acute times in life, whether it's because there's a new baby or you're preparing to have a new baby, or because there is a chronic illness, or there's something acute that's happened in the family that really needs a lot of help. We kind of have this hierarchy, right? Of like things that are okay to ask for
Mhm.
help about, and things that are like, oh, but no, we can't ask about that. That's sort of beyond what's
Mhm.
okay. And learning to kind of step into, really, I think it's a discernment piece of things, wouldn't you say? Because it's, we obviously also don't want to fall to the other extreme of like, everyone should do everything for me,
Right.
which I don't think is a risk for a lot of people, but really that discernment about where's the ask. Is this a
Mhm.
God ask? Do I ask God to provide for this, or is this something that is important for me to ask of another person in my life,
Mhm.
so that they have the opportunity to love and serve me in this way, which is really for their good just as much as mine.
It really is. Right now, so we're like in a very acute moment right now. My husband is a resident, and his current rotation is 3 hours away, which means Monday through Friday he is just gone. And we have 4 kids and another one on the way. So when this airs, I will be 8.5 months pregnant.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even know.
um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it is a moment where I'm like torn between that lie of, this is your family, these are your kids, this is your responsibility. You have to be able to do all of those things. And also the like, the reality of like, holy cow, there's no possible way that I can handle everything on my own. And it's really, forcing me like daily to be like, I need help. I need help. I can't do this by myself. And it's a hard lesson, but it's a good lesson, and it's a good reminder. And it's been so beautiful just getting to watch our community and our family support us. And like love my kids lots of extra without their dad. So yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like in your life right now, both kind of the family involvement and community? And how did you kind of establish those relationships and structures that you're leaning on now?
Well, so we are really, really blessed. We love intergenerational living over here. My mom lives about a mile away from us now. And my husband's parents are an hour away, and he's one of 7. So we have lots of aunts and uncles. And so my mom is really our primary like pillar of strength. But we also, my sister and brother-in-law live about 20 minutes away, and we homeschool together. So they've been just tremendous about, bringing over food and taking my big 2 for a sleepover, and just like checking in regularly, right? Because sometimes that's just the thing you need most, right? Is somebody to like notice that you're struggling. So we have that, and my husband has 2 substantially younger brothers who are a lot more free in their schedule and come over, and we call them the Funkles. So they come and roughhouse, the kids when their dad's not here. And we have people from church, that we've, friends for years who, drop off meals, text to check in, come over to play, things that just sort of keep that communication and, adult contact. We have an amazing pastor who is really, really, he's my husband's spiritual director, and has been a rock for me, just kind of reminding me like, this is temporary. You can do this, without downplaying the struggle. So it's definitely pushed me outside of my comfort zone, and admitting that I'm not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
admitting like, no, we're not doing great right now.
Mm-hmm.
We will do great again, like we will get through this, but for right now, it's hard and we need support.
Yeah, it's that classic both and that
Hmm.
like, we can hold space for the hope, but still need a lot today. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's okay. Right? Like it's okay to crosses are supposed to be hard, and even Jesus had help.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's where we kind of take the wrong disposition to the cross, or can take the wrong
mhm.
disposition to the cross, is really to take is or to make, I should say, the intensity or the overwhelmingness of the need into the cross without asking for help,
Mhm.
instead of allowing Simon to come alongside and help carry it, right? Because,
Yeah.
the Lord could have, though he would not have, in his disposition and how he shows us how to carry his cross, could have said no, like, no, Simon, I'm got to do this all myself, sort of thing, and really rejected that help that he didn't necessarily ask for in as many words, but clearly needed.
Mhm.
And when we I think that that's where we can get twisted up about things. Wouldn't you agree that we can make it heavier than it is needing to be by not allowing people to be present in it with us?
Absolutely. I know, like, the question that I ask myself is like, okay, Lord, which of, like, what is it that you really do want me in this? Where should I be saying yes to help that I'm not?
Mm.
And what, like, part of it is gonna fall on me, right? Like my children waking up in the middle of the night. Like that's on me. That's on me 110%, But when somebody offers help, like take it, and over again he keeps reminding me that that just because something's a cross doesn't mean it's supposed to almost break you, right? And doesn't mean it's supposed to, be as hard as we make it,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's okay to acknowledge to other people, my cross is too heavy right now. I need your help.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Colleen, for being our guest today. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
It is my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of the Authentic Uprising podcast. It is always a joy to be with you. I encourage you to subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, whichever place you most prefer, or do it all if that is what floats your boat. We would love to continue to get to know you better and grow in relationship with you. And so I encourage you to check out the links in both our show notes and our YouTube description that tell you more about where you can connect with us elsewhere. The two big things we have going on besides the podcast is our shop that is full of reminders of who you are in God, helping you to really grow in that radical art of standing in who you are and giving gifts that help others to do the same. The other big thing we have going on is the Uprising Academy. This is all of our formation programs, workshops, retreats. Everything is available virtually and on demand, where you can sign up and continue to learn more about radically standing in what God says about you, especially if you are in a place in your life where you are not being fed the way that you long to be fed. Whether it's in your community, whether it's at your church, whatever it is, there is more for you, and we can absolutely walk with you into it through the Uprising Academy. All those links are in our show notes, and if you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to leave a review. Reviews are the number one way that we help get in front of new faces, new people that are able to be touched by the radical art of standing in what God says about us. I love you. I'm praying for you. I hope you have an amazing week.